Before we get into the episode, I have an amazing gift for you that is going to create so much growth in your business. I just recorded an episode where I shared how I grew my business by 657% in 1 year. I shared the exact principles I used. There are 5 of them. As if that's not enough, I created a worksheet for you where you can just go through certain exercises so you can implement those 5 principles in your business in the next 24 hours. We're talking about wins you're going to create in your business in the next 24 hours because of an episode of the EntreMD podcast you listen to. So go to entremd.com/worksheet to get your worksheet and head over to listen to episode 479 of the EntreMD podcast. Is going to completely rock your world. And there's nothing better than doing it other than doing it with a few friends. So share this with a few physician colleagues. You guys do it together and share with me the wins you created in your business in 24 hours. And now for the episode. Hi, docs. Welcome to the EntreMD Podcast, where it's all about helping amazing physicians just like you embrace entrepreneurship so you can have the freedom to live life and practice medicine on your terms. I'm your host, Dr. Una. Doctor in private practice who has a practice where her overhead is so high, her revenue is a lot less, and she thinks that her private practice is at risk of failing. And so today what we're going to do is take a look at this practice, come up with a diagnosis, fix the practice, and give this doctor a strategy she can start working with and right away start seeing wins in her practice and over time bring it from a place where it goes from almost failing to completely thriving. Okay, so we're going to look at this private practice. This is going to be a lot of fun. If we haven't met before, my name is Dr. Una. I'm a pediatrician by training. I have been in private practice for the last 15 years. And at this point, I've, technically exited my practice, if you will. My practice is team-led and it's been that way for the last 5 years. And then I'm the founder of EntreMD. I help doctors build profitable businesses so they have the freedom to live life and practice medicine on their terms. I am a huge advocate for private practice. Private practice is not dead. The old playbooks are. And yes, we have a lot of systemic problems in the healthcare space, but until we have enough empowered physicians who can then stand up to the system, we are going nowhere. Okay. So I fully understand there's a lot of things to fix, but when you get on a plane, they tell you if the pressure goes low, oxygen masks are going to come down. You're going to put it on yourself first, and then you're going to put it on others. Okay. So this is us putting the oxygen mask on ourselves. Okay. All right. So when this doctor told me this, I said, okay, I want you to think about the top 5 things that are creating this financial pressure and financial challenge you have in your private practice. And she sent me these 5 things. So we're going to troubleshoot these 5 things. Okay. So the first thing was, my reimbursement, right, from the insurance company. So this is insurance-based private practice is low and slow. Okay, so it's low and slow, money coming in. And we know money coming in, that's like the blood, if you will, of the private practice and all of those things. So this is something that we absolutely need to fix. Okay, so she gave me some context. She said there's a large discrepancy between insurance carriers. And so, so some pay, well, and some pay very poorly. She said, I've already stopped taking Medicaid. There are thousands of outstanding dollars after the first year with Medicaid. And then it's considered letting go of TRICARE. Okay. And again, because of low reimbursements and all of those things. And so this is something that absolutely needs to be fixed. When you think about like the practice revenue, anything touching it is like something touching your aorta. Like once you bleed from there, you're bleeding out, right? So this is something very serious. We want to look into it and we want to fix it. So I came up with some recommendations for her. Okay. These are things that she can consider. These are things that she can do. Some of them will work fairly quickly. Some of them will work over time. I don't think there are any of these strategies really that she shouldn't employ. Okay. So the first one I said is looking into joining a network that manages contracting. Okay. So like an IPA, an independent physician association, or PHO, a physician hospital organization, like one of these, and this is if she's not already a part of it. And why is that? Well, because these organizations have a pool of physicians within them, they're usually able to negotiate for better rates. Okay, so there's so many people who have had significant bumps in their revenue just because they went from contracting directly to contracting with an IPA, right? Now, so if she hasn't done this, this will be a really great thing to consider. Chances are that it's not going to bring an immediate turnaround because it's going to be a process to, go through them and all of those kind of things. But it's something that, yes, it will bring a lot of transformation. Now, I will say with this, because it has to do with your money and the entire revenue of your practice, you do want to choose carefully, right? Everybody's going to sell you a good game. They're going to say, when you come on, we'll do this, we'll do that, blah, blah, blah. They'll make all the promises in the world. And I'm going to challenge you to find 3 to 5 people who are using that IPA or using that PHO and go find out from them what the real deal is, right? So you want to get references. It doesn't have to be from the company. It can be from the company or the organization, or you can get them directly, like who's part of this network, and you go interview and have real conversations, okay? Do not take anything at face value. This is something that we do as physicians and something we want to walk away from doing. Okay, something we want to walk away from doing, which is whatever they said, we just believe them. Don't. You're an entrepreneur now. That's not what we do. Trust but verify, right? Okay, so that's the first recommendation for reimbursement being low and slow. The second one is to audit the distribution of patients and insurance in the practice. Data is a very beautiful thing because data will show you, like data preaches to you. You see the data, automatically becomes obvious what needs to happen, right? And so you want to think like, what are the top 3 insurances my patients use? You want to know what that number is. You want to know what those insurance companies are. You want to have a feel for it. But more importantly, you want to know, like, based on the fee schedule, you want to organize them from best paying to lowest paying, right? And then you ask yourself a question: for the lowest paying ones, am I even making money on them, or do I lose money with every visit? Because we've had to drop some insurances because they would pay us lower or the exact amount that the vaccines cost. And I'm like, if you pay me the exact amount that the vaccines cost, I am losing money with each vaccine I give because I have to buy the vaccine, I have to store the vaccine, I have to pay staff to process the vaccine, I have to do all of these things. And so, yeah, and we have vaccine wastage. Like, I'm losing money on that. And so you are an insurance company that is too expensive for me to be a network with. Like, you're too expensive because you cost me money, right? And so you have to look like, am I losing money or I'm just not getting as much? Like, what is it, right? If, and then you want to consider dropping some if you need to drop them, right? If you need to drop them. Because it's a business decision, but you want to look. And then if you find out that most of your patients are with a very poor paying insurance company, then the question then becomes, do I close the panel and market really hard and change the distribution? Now, this doesn't mean change the philosophy of your practice. For instance, my private practice is about 60% Medicaid. And at a point, it was even higher. And I'm okay with it because that's what I wanted. I wanted a practice where people who had really good insurance and people who had Medicaid, they could come, they get treated really well. They have a great experience. They have access to a doctor. We had same day appointments. We had like all kinds of fun stuff. I wanted them to have that. Now, what it means is that I was also aware that I was playing a volume game. I didn't lie to myself. You can't say, I want to take Medicaid and I want to see 1 patient an hour. Those two things cannot coexist. The business will die. It will die. A sure death, right? And so I'm like, okay, I want to do that. So the question then becomes, how can I go through the volume and do it in such a way that is still a very personalized experience, where they felt like they were heard and all of that. Then I had to come up with the strategies for people to have a great experience, even though I'm not sitting with them for an hour. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, so it doesn't mean find the people, drop everybody. That's not what it means. But if you don't have the data, you don't know. Okay. So I have 10,000 patients. Wonderful. Top 3 insurance companies used by those 10,000 patients. You want to know what that is. Then you want to have the insurance companies top to bottom, from best paying to lowest paying. And lowest paying, is it lowest paying like I'm making a little profit, or is it lowest paying like I'm losing money? If you're losing money, you got to drop them. Okay. All right. So that's the second thing. We want to do this audit of the distribution. The third thing, for this person, because her specialty, lends to it, is I'm like, wow, like you want to consider some cash-based services. And chances are this doctor has either been thinking of it or maybe has some cash-based, like services, but they haven't necessarily been promoted and stuff like that. And the reason why I brought this up, because with what this practice is going through, it does seem like having an immediate cash injection would be really good for the practice. And so if they're cash-based verticals that already exist, we want to go hard on those. If they don't exist, for this person's specialty, there are many that can just exist. Like they can start today because this person is equipped to do them. They're hot topics, all of those things. So they can do them. Why? Immediate cash flow and higher margins, right? It's because you don't need the biller. You don't need this. There are a lot of things that you don't need. So I would do that and someone may say, oh, but this is so businessy. Like we're just going to bring these services because of the cash. No, we're going to bring the services because it'll be high value to her people and it will bring cash. And if you're in private practice, I don't want you to continue to be thrown off by the need to make money, because for your practice to stay open, you need to make money. We need to stop pretending. We need to stop acting like this is not an important thing. I am fully aware that one of the best ways I serve my patients is by staying profitable, because if I'm not profitable, I have to go away. Okay. So that's the third recommendation, is to lean into some cash-based services. Okay. Again, cash injection, because this practice, we need to get cash in. The fourth thing is I would prioritize services that increase the cash flow. And I'll explain what I mean by that. Okay. So let's say, for instance, in my private practice, if we say, oh, it looks like the next 2 weeks that we have open spots and stuff, and we need to do something to fill our schedule. So we need to be proactive as opposed to reactive. Okay. And let's say I have 300 patients who are overdue for well checks. Okay. Now, I know that I can't see all 300. So what are we going to do? We are going to call the people with the better paying insurance, and we're going to get them in. What is that going to do? It's going to give me a better cash flow. Now, you might say, but what of all the other people? Well, in my practice, we happen to have a routine schedule for sending out reminders to make appointments. So they have all had reminders, every last one of them. Okay. We also do not let people leave the office without scheduling an appointment. So for them not to have an appointment, it means that they canceled the appointment or they no-showed for an appointment, and we have not been able to reach them. Okay. So are we reaching out to everybody? We are. But if I want to go hard and put staff time behind bringing people in, I am going to leverage what will be a bigger win-win situation for all of us. Okay. All right. So for this doctor, you have to be aware. You have to be aware. The services that I offer, top to bottom, what are from biggest revenue generator to least revenue generator? Do you do all of them? Sure. But in a situation like this, where we're like, oh my goodness, something needs to give, you want to prioritize those. You're available for everything, but you prioritize those. Okay. All right. Again, if this makes you feel like, rah, 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 but it's about the patient. Of course it's about the patient. That means you're treating people differently. No. We're not. We're not. But seeing patients is the responsible thing for a doctor to do. And keeping the practice profitable is a responsible thing for a doctor to do. They're both responsible things. So we're doing both. Okay. All right. The fifth recommendation there I have is maximize daily productivity. Now, this is so important. Okay. I will give an example. I was talking to a doctor, someone that, I really have a lot of respect for and all of that stuff. She's running a practice. She built it from scratch. She's doing an amazing job. And then while we were talking, she says, I don't want to get burned out. I want to see a certain number of patients every day, because that's what I want to see. Okay. And then I said, and then she went on and I said, wait, what is that number? How many patients do you want to see? And I asked this question because I know she's an insurance-based model. And so she says, I want to see 14 patients a day. And so I said, 14 patients a day, you're an insurance model. And I know your reimbursement is probably not more than $150 per visit. So I'm like, okay, we're going to do some math here. Okay, so 150, I didn't use 150, I used 100 on that day because, the math was easier, but let's do the real math. Okay, 150 times 14 is 2,100. So I mean that your cap, with you as the doc there, your cap is 2,100 a day, okay? And you multiply that by 260, you're at $546,000. Now, when I did the math with 100, it was $364,000, okay? So you're at $546,000 before overhead. Like the cap of your practice is, that's the cap of your practice. And if your practice is like 60% overhead, which is not unusual, your 60% overhead puts you at $327,600. So the question then becomes, what's left, right? What's left? So this is what we need to look at. You have to know what the numbers say. You have to know what the numbers say. So when I did it with her and did the math at 100, I said, you're at $364,000. That's the cap. That's the most your practice can bring in before overhead, before paying you, before any profit. You have to be sure that you're okay with that number. You see what I'm saying? So for this doctor, I would actually have her look back on the last 2 weeks, on the last month. How many patients are you seeing every day? What is the maximum amount of revenue you can create with that? Are you having more no-shows than you thought? Are you seeing less volume than you thought? With the volume that you are seeing, what is the max per day? Because if that max per day is a number that you don't want, something needs to give. Do you see what I'm saying? If we don't do the math, bad things happen. Okay. So this is part of the reason why, we use, in my private practice, we use Practice Pilot. Okay. So Practice Pilot is a financial tracking software for private practices. And when you go in there, one of the things it will do is it will have you put your average reimbursement per patient. Okay. And then you'll set what your goal is. So if you say my revenue goal for this year is I want to bring in 2 million. Now, based on your average reimbursement per patient, it will tell you how many patients you need to see. And if you say, no, I don't want to see that number, I want to see this number, it will show you how much revenue you can generate. And once you see those, there's just something about seeing the data that lets you know, like, wait, I don't like that number. And then if you don't like the number, the average reimbursement needs to change, or the volume of patients needs to, something needs to give. Okay. So I would have this doctor do the math with the way you're functioning. What is the potential amount of revenue your practice can bring in every day? This is a number you want to know. Okay. All right. So that was the first thing. My reimbursements were low and slow. Okay. Second thing, my AR is out of control. Okay. My AR is out of control. So when we looked at this, okay, this is the number that she gave me. Okay. She said over 90 days. So from over 60 days was almost 80% of her revenue. Over 90 to 120 days was 38% of her revenue. She has a lot of revenue sitting in her AR, a lot of it. Okay. And, for older practices, you may have that because maybe you have bad debt, like from years and years and years. So your over 120 is like bloated. She's in her second year. She's in her second year of practice. Right. And so to have that number, I would definitely make the assumption that my biller is not doing a good job. You can even make the assumption that maybe your front desk people are not doing a good job. Maybe the insurance eligibility, I don't know. But there are things that you're going to, okay, we need to look here. Now, so these are the recommendations I have based on that. First of all, I'm like, you have to treat this as a matter of urgency. And I would think of it like somebody's bleeding out. You're a surgeon. You have somebody on the operating table and this person is bleeding out. Nobody's like calm and collected and whatever. Like we have something to fix. Okay. So we're not frazzled, but there's urgency. Okay. when you have AR like this early in the game, there's urgency. This needs to be fixed. It means the practice is bleeding out. What that means is, we have this thing of, if we're seeing a lot of patients, that means, if we're really busy, it means the practice is working. No, no, no. The evidence of the practice working is in the bank account. Because the fact that you saw a patient doesn't mean you got paid for seeing the patient. It doesn't mean that at all. Like, after seeing the patient, there are processes that need to happen before you get paid. Okay. So this is what I have for her. Treat this as a matter of urgency. Treat it like there's somebody in the OR on the table bleeding out. If you know the level of urgency you have with that, you're still calm because you have the strategy, the algorithms and all of those things, but it's urgent. It's urgent. So one is treated as a matter of urgency. Two is meet with the billers to diagnose the issue and create a strategic path forward. What that means is you're not even offering all the things. When you have a vendor, please understand that the vendor works for you. Okay. They may not be your W-2 employee, but they work for you. And so you sit with them and you're like, okay, we have an issue. Okay. This is what our billing looks like. This is what the national standard benchmarks are. So somebody walk me through what exactly is going on. Like, what is the core issue here? Okay. It can be more than three. What are the top three? What are the three core issues here? Or the one core issue here is usually not one. So let's say three. And what is the strategic path to move forward? How do we make this AR look like this AR, like this national benchmark? Okay. Now, billers have been known to blow hot air because they know physicians don't care about this stuff. Physicians don't want to look at this stuff. Physicians will not ask questions. I literally had a client who talked to her biller, like, I want us to meet and do all this. And she's like, no physician has ever asked to meet with me. I was like, oh, we're in the EntreMD world. Of course we ask. This is the era of the practice, right? Okay. So what is the issue? And when they tell you highfalutin things, you're like, break it down like I'm a doctor, like I'm a third grader, like make it make sense. But don't just accept anything, right? Don't just accept anything. Like the diagnosis needs to make sense to you. The strategic path forward needs to make sense to you. Okay. So have them come up with it, create a strategic path forward. You want to lean into it. So I've taught about this in the profitable private practice movement, like, how to look at these things. You want to look at it. Okay. All right. Then the third thing is, after you're done with that meeting, things will change if you do this thing, which is to meet with them weekly. Give them the gift of accountability. This is where we were last week. This is where we are this week. These are the plans that we made. These are the problems we identified. What is the update? What is the update? This does not need to take more than 30 minutes, but that 30 minutes will be the equivalent of thousands and thousands of dollars if you do it. And if you don't, everybody will forget it and go to the status quo. Everybody, including champions, need the gift of accountability. Right? And so you meet with them weekly till at least you slow down the bleeding. Right? Okay. So that's the thing I would do. Absolutely. Okay. Number 4, I would hold the biller. So she has a biller, like her EHR company does the billing, and then she has another person to assist with the billing. Okay. I would hold both accountable. Okay. I will hold both of them accountable to whatever metrics and all of those things. I would even hold the front desk accountable if they're not verifying insurance eligibility, collecting co-pays. Like, if your personal AR as opposed to your insurance AR is also really high, I will hold them accountable. Like, all co-pays need to be collected. All co-insurance needs to be collected. All deductibles need to be collected. All old balances need to be collected. I want you to start thinking about your front desk person as your director of finance. Their job is to collect money. Because your practice is in a place where you need, like, everybody needs to collect money. But for this practice in particular, they need to collect money. They can leave no money on the table. None. Okay. Then number 5 is long-term. You have to look. Do I need to start looking for a new billing partner? Do I need to look for new billers? Okay. Because if you're working with billers and they're not making the changes, they're gaslighting you, it's the same thing over and over again. They're not getting any sense of urgency or whatever. You can work, you probably need to work with them to do what you need to do in the moment. But if you know you're going to look, then you want to start looking, because that's a whole process on its own. And again, I would tread carefully. I would not roll over my billing to a new company without interviewing people who are using that new biller I want to go with, hearing their real experience, especially if they're people who know what their numbers are. Sometimes people are like, oh, that biller is great. They've never met with them. They don't know what their AR is and all that. That doesn't matter. So you want to talk to somebody who, like you, is looking into their numbers. They know what it is. They know their billers are good at this and all of that kind of stuff. Okay. I would say long-term, start looking for new billing partners if you need to. Okay. And again, a financial tracking system like, Practice Pilot is probably a good system, like it's for you to keep your numbers in front of you. You can see it. It's a simple system. You can log in every day, see what we're doing with money, see what our potential revenue is, look at what our AR is looking like, and all of those things. Okay. So that was the second problem. First problem, reimbursement is low and slow. Second problem, AR is out of control. Third problem, high overhead. Okay. Now I didn't get all the details of the overhead, but for instance, her rent is $9,500 a month, right? That's almost $10K a month. That's $120,000 a year, almost. Okay. All right. So we have high overhead in the midst of our low and slow reimbursements. Okay. And our billing, our AR being out of control. So we have inflow problems and we have outflow problems. Okay. So what would I recommend she does, right? So this is, this is a high rent, it's a high lease. And by extrapolation, like our overhead is just high. Okay. So one is, consider subleasing. And one of the things that happens when we have really big things that we need to work through is that our mind offers up this thought of, it's not possible, you can't, it's not possible, nobody does that, all of that stuff. You're an entrepreneur now, right? So everyone watching this. And so what that means is there are very few things that are, like we don't start with impossible. So we don't say, I can't do that. We say, how can I do that? Right? This is such an empowering question. How can I do that? How can I pull that off? How can that be possible? How can? Okay. So have human beings subleased? Yes. Millions of people have subleased. So, okay, how can I? Right? Oh, but the landlord said I can't sublease. Okay. Does he want that, or does he want a private practice that's not there at all and can't pay him money anyway? I'm paying you 10 grand a month, man. Like help me figure out how to help you. Okay. And so, yes. So can it be negotiated? Yes. Can we find a tenant? Yes, we can. We simply can. Okay. All right. So especially if you're not using all this space, oh my goodness, because you can reduce your rent by $2,000 a month if you can find somebody who's subleased for $2,000 a month. Okay. So that's a thing. And I would work it. Okay. I would tell the people in my network. I would have my team talk to people. I'd do all kinds of stuff. Okay. Second thing is reduce non-essential, non-revenue generating expenses. And so what that means is you're going to pull, for instance, your bank statement, your credit card statement, all of those things for the practice, and you're going to go line by line. Okay. Is this essential to the running of this practice? Does this create revenue? Is this essential to the running of the practice? Does this create revenue? Is this essential to the running of the practice? Does this create revenue? And if it doesn't, just chop it off. Chop it off. Okay. And it's a way of thinking. I recommend this for people when their practices are booming. It's like you want to go through. Is this essential? Does this generate revenue? Okay. Now, I want to tell you 3 things to never cut off. Okay. These are 3 things we don't cut off because we need them. Number 1, advertising with a return on investment. Okay. So let's say you were running ads, you were running Google ads or Facebook ads and whatever. So let's say you're doing Google ads, and from Google ads, you get 40 new patients every single month and you're spending $1,000 on it. Okay. Now let's just make up numbers. Let's say, for their first visit is, just for the sake of math, let's say it's $150. Okay. So you have $150 times 40, right? That's $6,000. So you are making an ROI, return on investment, of $6,000 for every $1,000 you spend. Okay. So how much do you spend on that? All the money you can spend, because it's paying for itself. Every time you spend 1, you get 6, which is a net of 5. You see what I'm saying? So when we're reducing expenses, we don't cut that. Now, if you have the marketing team, you're paying 12 grand a month and they're not doing anything, by all means, cut them, right? But when you have an established, documented, I can see in the bank ROI, you don't cut it off. Okay. The second thing you don't cut off is coaching and consulting with an ROI. Okay. So for instance, in this conversation that I'm having, like where we're troubleshooting this private practice, you will find that these strategies, if you execute them, the minimum you'll be able to get from this one conversation is $100,000. And this can extend to multiple 7 figures, depending on how aggressively you execute on these strategies. Okay. Now, if you are paying somebody, right, for this, and you are getting the strategies that are keeping you in motion, you're getting the strategies that are helping you build, you don't cut that off. You don't cut that off, right? You don't. Why? The ROI is huge. If you can go from a failing practice to a thriving practice, like a failing practice to a profitable practice to a thriving practice through a coaching program, you don't cut it off, right? Because the ROI is ginormous. Okay. The third thing you're not going to cut off is you're not going to cut off your team with an ROI. So let's say your front desk person, you talk with them about this new strategy we're going to engage, and this person takes her role as the director of finance like super seriously, and she's collecting all the dollars, and every day she's collecting between $500 and $1,000 in co-pays, old balances, all of these things. And you're like, oh, my payroll is so high. I'm gonna slash my team. You don't slash that person because their ROI is ginormous. Do you see what I'm saying? Now, notice for each of them, I said with an ROI. If it doesn't have a return on investment, throw it away. But if it does, we don't cut. We don't cut that. Okay. All right. So your non-essential, non-revenue generating expenses, you can get rid of those. Okay. All right. So the next thing we're going to do for this really high overhead is to increase revenue. So we go back to what we had with number one. I'm going to talk about more, right? We increase revenue, right? Because there's some expenses that just can't be cut. So we go after making revenue so that our expenses, the ratio becomes a lot less. Okay. And this is my favorite strategy. My favorite strategy is let's create, of course, we want to shed fat and get rid of waste. We don't want to be wasteful. We want to be good stewards. But at the same time, your revenue, this is your big strategy. Okay. All right. So then the doctor had team issues. So she said, I have 3 team members, no office manager, not there yet. 2 are rock stars, 1 is not. Okay. I've had multiple conversations with this one with her productivity, but she doesn't know how to pivot. Okay. So she might be what we call a steady Eddie. Steady Eddies are people who will come, they will do the same thing every single day forever. Okay. They're not going to be proactive. They're not going to come up with some big, daring, great plan and all those things, but they're your steady Eddies. And so right off the back, I will say, like, if this person is a steady Eddie, they do well in the confines of this one thing. Not when I say one thing, I don't mean one task, but I mean, if you tell them what to do, they'll do it, but they're just not going to be creative and they're not going to do that. Then you want to ask yourself, is this one I can repurpose? I'll talk about that in a second. So let me not get ahead of myself. Okay. So, but the team issues, what's my recommendation? Okay. Now, I will start with my observations. And this is my observation after studying thousands of private practices over the years. Okay. The number one problem with most of the teams in private practices is the team leader, is the physician owner. Like, we are the problem of our team, right? And a lot of times that problem is because we don't define what their role is. We don't define how this role makes money. We don't have clarity on what they're supposed to do. We have not communicated with them how to win. So they don't even know they're in a basketball game and they don't know where the basket is. And like, we're the issue. Okay. For the most part. So that's an observation I made. Another observation I made is that, improperly led teams are where practice profits go to die, because you're seeing the patients, you're generating the revenue, but you haven't empowered your team. So your team becomes dead weight. Your team becomes a liability. And so they're not creating revenue. So you are the only revenue generator. Okay. So once you stop, everything stop. Once you stop, like, you have no support. You feel like you're carrying everything yourself. It's too much. And I'm going to show you how to fix that. And so that's where profits go to die. And we just didn't set up our teams to help us with the burden of ownership, with the burden of creating revenue, right? Okay. So what are my recommendations as how to fix this? Number 1, define KRAs, key result areas for each role. And I didn't say key tasks. I said key result areas. So for instance, for a front desk person, we're not saying, well, greet the patients, check them in, all of that stuff. Those are activities, those are tasks, and those do nothing, right? Like, of course, they're very important, but oh my goodness, those are tasks. As opposed to, right? As opposed to, for instance, 100% collection on all co-pays, deductibles, co-insurance, and old balances, right? We say 100% insurance verification on all appointments, right? We say 5 Google reviews a day. which means they have to greet the patients in a certain way, do things in a certain way. So when the patient is leaving, it's like, I hope you had a great experience. It would be so much to me if you could leave me a 5-star review. That's how I keep my job. I'm not saying that's how she keeps her job. I'm just being funny. But when you have these outcomes, now their creativity is is unlocked to go get it, to go make it possible. And you can show them, like, this is the outcome. These are the activities you do to get there. But when you do that, can you imagine you don't have to bear the weight of, things were collected up front, or we're getting reviews, all that. You're sharing. You're sharing it, right? Okay. So, and every role in the KRAs, every role needs to include serving and earning. It has to include both. Okay. All right. So the second thing I would do is distribute the outcomes linked with turning the ship around. So we've talked about a lot of things. We talked about, the billers. We've talked about, collecting our old balances, maximizing daily production. We've talked about auditing. We've talked about all of these things. You want to do it with your team. Don't do it alone. Don't do it alone. So for instance, we need to make sure we're collecting all the money for what we do. So the front desk person could have collecting all the upfront money, right? You can have another person that's in charge of creating 3 appointments with this cash-based vertical that you want to do, right? You have your biller with the metrics. So they're in charge of that. Like, share the burden for this stuff. Maybe you looked at your daily productivity and you're like, oh my goodness, like, we're seeing 4 patients less than I actually want to see. They have another person who's in charge of making sure you see X number of patients a day. They're hitting the recaller. They're doing all the things. But do you see what I'm saying? Like, don't just bear it all, like, bear it with the team. Cast vision with them. Tell them this is the kind of practice we're in. Tell them about all the private practices shutting down, and we've decided we're not going to be a statistic, but because we can do the things, right? Share it in such an inspiring way and tell them, let's go. They will go with you. Okay. Third recommendation, repurpose or dehire team members as needed. Okay. So like the Steady Eddie, if you need to repurpose them where they're doing something where they're kind of doing the same thing and it's a thing that needs to be done, doesn't need to be automated and stuff like that, like you kind of put them in that position. If they just can't work, like dehire them, and the sooner the better. Okay. And again, this is one of the reasons why I like Practice Pilot. I think I'm going to keep mentioning it, and you can check it out. It's practicepilot.io. But this is one of the reasons I like Practice Pilot, because it's self-reporting. And you don't want to enter the data. You want your team to enter the data. So they will see, our goal was to see this number of patients, but today, oopsie, this is what we saw. Right? And they're like, oh, wait, we need to fix that. They're the ones who put in the AR. They're like, oh my goodness. And they see that, right? And the person and the insurance and all of those things. So you want that. Because what it does is it helps your team see what you see, and it helps them come to the conclusions you came to, right? Okay. All right. So that was the fourth problem. That was the fourth problem she talked about. The fifth problem she talked about was her personal finances. Okay. So there's financial pressure there because she took out a HELOC. She took out from her 401k. She got a bank loan, and she used this for renovations, equipment, furniture, personal bills, and she has personal bills still and stuff like that. Okay. So what is the recommendation here? Okay. Now, first of all, I will say this. If I was talking to this person face to face, I would say, you want to be careful. Okay. Because financial pressure is real. Financial pressure is hard. And it is sometimes really, really hard to make smart financial decisions when the pressure shows up. Sometimes it's really hard. Money-led decisions, like I'm making this because of financial pressure, are rarely ever the right ones. And I say this like I'm sending virtual hugs first. I know this is hard and all of that stuff, but let's walk through some things to do. Okay. All right. Now, and in part of being, like careful is probably if you feel under so much pressure and you feel, I must make a decision now, I must do this now. Like probably decide to sleep over it. Like when you're in that state, don't make any decisions. Okay. So that's the first thing. Just be careful. Second thing, aggregate all your debt. Okay, so these are all the things I owe. This is how much it is. This is what all the monthly payments come up to. This is what the total monthly payment comes up to. And talk to all your lenders. Everything is negotiable. Everything is negotiable. So if there could be a pause of something without increasing your interest rate, that would be awesome. If there could be a decreased interest rate, if they're willing to do that, that would be awesome. If they talk with them. If they would do lower payments for X amount of period, again, without changing the interest and changing the terms, we don't want to go from one issue to another, then that would be awesome. But don't make the assumption that it's not negotiable. Everything is negotiable. Everything is negotiable. Okay. Number 3, I said this before, but I'm going to say it again. Prioritize services that increase cash flow. Okay, prioritize services that increase cash flow because we want cash flow coming in. The thing that will give you the greatest piece, right, with this is bringing in revenue that makes up for that. Okay, all right. And one of the things was, do I sell my house or do I not sell my house? I would say it depends, and you really want to think about that. For instance, if you're like, I was looking to sell in the next 1 to 2 years anyway, and you had a home that has so much equity in it, it has it had a low interest rate, all of that stuff, and you'll be able to sell this, buy what it is you want now, and then you have, like profits off of that you can put into whatever you want to. You can do that if you're not thinking about selling it at all, and maybe you got a house in the last 2 years and all of that stuff, and it's just going to be a lose, lose, lose. Then you want to think maybe of not doing that. But what I will tell you is there are multiple loans here and you don't have multiple houses to sell, right? And so you kind of want to think of what would I do to get myself out of this outside of the house? And then say, okay, do I want to go all in on doing that and then keep my house? You see what I'm saying? So there's a lot of thinking that needs to go into that. But I would say no hurry to do something that is fairly permanent off of something that is temporary. Does that make sense? So that's the way, but there's a lot more conversation. So I would say you want to be strategic with what you do here. Okay. But definitely talk to your lenders for sure. And for sure, get that cash flow engine going, bringing revenue in and all of those things. Okay. So lots of stuff. And so this is the last one, and it's mental exhaustion from all of this. Okay. And I'm going to read what this doctor said. I think it's important, because this is what she says. I'm a solo doc. I've always done it alone. I haven't had mentors or physician colleagues to bounce ideas off. I feel isolated. I'm a Black female physician in town with only 2 to 4 other Black female in private practice, but there are 30 to 40 doctors in my specialty in this town, and all that stuff. I'm losing hope. Okay. So again, first of all, the long squishy hug, like long squishy, big understanding hug, and all of that. And I do want to say, thank you so much for what you do, because you've chosen to serve people for this long. You've chosen to build your own healthcare system, which is really what we do as private practice owners. And think of what, the thousands of people who would not have access to great care if you didn't say yes to doing what you do. So big, big, big hug. And I want to say, the principles of rest, sometimes it's really hard with what you're going through, but, there's rest, there's meditation, but there's also a support system. And I want you to understand that no matter what it's out there, you can have a support system. It may look different. You may need to get a little creative, right? Some of them may be outside of your area, and some of them may not even be close to you. They may be online. I have such great relationships with some doctors who've poured into me so much and who I've been able to bounce ideas off and all of that. And I haven't even met them in person. Some of them, I met them in person after 3 years. You know what I'm saying? And so I don't want you to accept the fact that you can't have a great support system. I want you to know that you deserve a great support system and then build it. They may not all be in your area. They may not all be like you. They may be online and all of that stuff. Just refuse to walk alone. Right? And so what is a good starting point? In the communities where you do find yourself, show up, ask questions, talk to people, schedule lunch dates, schedule Zoom meet and greets, have conversations, start networking, and you'll find your people or people who know your people. and all of that stuff, right? I will start from this thing that, of course, my support system is out there. And of course, I deserve a great support system. And no, I am no longer going to walk alone. Like, I'm just not going to do it. Right. And so whether there's spaces online, if we have a number of communities, we have the profitable private practice movement. Like, if you're part of that, like, when you come in there, show up in the comments, connect with people, and then take those relationships offline and stuff like that. Like, do that. The EntreMD Business School is another one, huge one, right? And like, build your own community. And in a time where most people talk about private practice being dead and you can survive and woe is us and all of those things, find people who are saying the opposite. Find people who, like you, want to take their practices from not doing really well to really profitable to thriving, right? So do that, right? So show up in those spaces and start building those relationships. Okay. Set a target for yourself, 3, then 6, then 12, then, whatever, and build that for yourself. Okay. And then, so goodwill, it always comes back, you know what I mean? And so when you have an opportunity to help somebody, and when I say help, I don't want to mean like you shut down your office for a day and go do stuff. I'm not even talking about that. I'm talking about simple things like somebody opened a new practice and you're mailing them a card and saying, oh my goodness, congratulations, welcome to the area. Somebody gets an award, you like congratulate them. Somebody, it seems like they're struggling, you encourage them and stuff. Is goodwill. And the thing about goodwill is it's going to come back to you. It may not come back from the person you showed goodwill towards, but it will come back from somebody, right? And so, do that, do it knowing that I'm just sowing these seeds and they're going to come back to me, but refuse to walk alone. And if you look in your circle, your network, your area, you'll find that there are people I can sow goodwill into, and there are people that I can start having conversations with and start building that support system, right? Whether they're online or they're in person and stuff like that. And so I know we went through a lot of stuff, but I hope out of this, you can build out, like, this is where I'm going to start from, and revenue, you really want to start. You really want to start with fixing the revenue and all of those things. But you have things that you can say, okay, these are the 7 strategic things I'm going to do over the next 30 days with my team. So with your team, you can do 7, right? Like, I'm going to do over the next 30 days to put my practice in a position where we can start the process of thriving. Right. And these are the things you can map out. And if you have questions, for everyone who's watching, the comments and all of those things, like, post them in the comments. I will come back. I may make a whole video on all of those things. But for this, doctor, I want you to know that I am rooting for you. I believe in you. Obviously, I support you. I guess I'm one of your supporters, right? I support you. And I really cannot wait to hear about you turning this around. I know that, yes, it's going to be challenging. It may even get a little harder before it gets easier, but I know you can do it. And I know you have the strategy, and I'm rooting for you. Stay connected to us, whether you're in PPPM or you're reading the Profitable Private Practice Playbook. And we have so many resources. If you have questions, just post them in the comments. I'll come back for it. Okay. Now, I want to challenge everyone to take the link of this video watcher. If you're listening on the podcast, I want you to take the link and share it with every private practice owner you need, because these are strategies that work, whether your practice is struggling, or your practice is profitable, or your practice is thriving, right? Like, these are the things we want to stay on top of so we continue to thrive, because the more we thrive, the better it is for our patients, the more empowered physicians we have. And then we now have a group of people who can go into the healthcare system and turn everything right side up. Okay. All right. So absolutely rooting for you, and I'll see you on the next episode.